The following podcast is proudly brought to you by Repco, driven by passion for 100 years. G'day everyone, I'm Chad Nailon and welcome to Repco Supercars Rewind, the pod that usually celebrates the sport's most memorable moments, but today something special, a one-on-one, in-depth chat between this year's champion Shane van Gisbergen and the voice of supercars Neil Crompton. The interview is taken from the recently produced Inside Line, a season with Triple Eight docuseries that has just been uploaded to Supercars' YouTube channel, which means fans can now catch all 7 episodes free and on demand over the off-season. The chat delves deep into the many chapters of SVG's career, including how he was first approached by then Triple Eight boss Roland Dane, his intense rivalry with Jamie Whincup during Whincup's final year, Bathurst success and heartache, and goes to the core of why he loves motor racing so much and the parts of the job that he loathes. As you'll hear, it was a relaxed and candid Shane van Gisbergen that sat down with Neil Crompton on that day. And so it's great to be able to give fans access to the entire chat as the two burn through multiple topics over the space of nearly 45 minutes. So have a listen and enjoy as we take in a special Repco Supercars Rewind pod with an unfiltered SVG.
So what I want to do is start with, let's start with the boss. So do you have any recollection, or what are your recollections of when you first had dealings with Roland Dane, and what were they like?
I don't know, don't remember the first time I met him, but obviously I'd seen him around and said hello a couple of times. But yeah, it was a coffee shop, I think in Brisbane, must have been end of 2014 that we ended up doing the deal for 2016. So it was done quite early, and we had a really good chat with Roland, and my dad was there also. He come over for it, and yeah, sort of worked out what it was going to look like in future and how the team was going to work, expanding to 3 cars and stuff like that. And you know, it didn't take much selling. You know, it's obviously the top team, but the way he said it was going to run and how they'd, you know, mould me into, you know, winning a championship, it was something I was pretty attracted to.
And did that come off the back of essentially being in their machinery, painted differently and fettled by a different group of guys, but that was where you first started to cuddle up to Triple Eight, where you could start to share some data and some ideas together?
Yeah, the link, I don't know, was that strong, but I think actually RD said that Ludo was, you know, pushing me a little bit there to try and get me as the next guy, which is pretty cool. You know, Ludo was there in our debriefs that we'd do with Techno and stuff, and got to know him and see his learnings. And yeah, I think it sort of came from there that I was used to the equipment, and when I joined in 2016, it wasn't much of a change really, jumping into one of their cars.
The Techno period was quite fruitful for you in that respect, wasn't it? Like, it gave you a new lease on life. You know, things had been tricky there prior to that, but it leads me to the point of Steve Hallam, which you and I have talked about before. A great guy, very worldly, but a huge believer in you.
Oh, he was awesome. So he joined for the second year at Techno, and when we went back to 1 car and the team was only 7 or 8 people, and how he kept those guys so close-knit. And it was one of those periods of, you know, you don't get very often in motorsport where it's just a tight-knit group and everyone knows their role in the team and works well together. And yeah, it was a cool thing to be part of. 2013 was pretty successful, but 2014, you know, I think we finished 2nd in the championship with a single car team, which was pretty awesome.
And how influential was Steve in further cementing the connection to RD and Triple Eight? Did he play a role in that?
Yeah, like when I told him I was leaving, which was early 2015, he was pretty gutted about it, but you know, he was, you know, knew it would be a good thing for me, and we've kept in touch ever since. And although it didn't, you know, he left pretty soon after I left. Getting to work with him in America a couple of years ago, and hopefully next year too, was awesome. You know, he's got a pretty awesome position now, head of chassis development at TRD in America. It's a pretty awesome thing, but you know, learning or getting to know him and his history with Lotus and McLaren, and yeah, he's done some awesome things.
I sat with him in a garage at Winton a few years ago on television and asked him to walk through the greats that he'd worked with. And he talked about these mega names that you and I revere in the sport. And then I asked him where he rated you in amongst them, and he rates you very, very highly. So that must be very gratifying as a guy that loves his racing so much to be revered in that company.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. He's done a lot for you, hasn't he? Because if you think about what he's done for you locally in supercars and then what he's done for you in GT, it's given you a big career boost.
Yeah, it's been awesome, and you know, there's some things, like, he's so experienced, and I remember lots of engineering meetings in techno. Like, he was an engineer himself, and sometimes it's like he knew the answer to things, but he'd let you and your engineer work it out yourselves and guide you in the direction, but not tell you the answer. And yeah, like, and sometimes it's like, just let us know what to do, like, tell us. But he'd let you figure things out and solve problems and build that experience yourself. He's a very good teacher.
So going back to RD, and so you've made the transition from techno to Triple Eight, great opportunity in your professional career.
Yep.
Was the arrival inside the team everything you expected it to be? Was Roland the leader that you thought he was from the outside, and was the team everything that it looked like from the outside?
Yeah, yes and no. I'd only been in a big team once before at Stone Brothers. Techno was obviously very small, and then joining back to a big team, it operated very differently. Like, you had the same equipment, obviously, but everything was so open. Like, it took a lot of adjusting to come in after a session and, you know, talk about the car openly, not, you know, hide what rear spring settings you've got, or, you know, everything was on the table, and it was refreshing, but it took a little bit to adjust and to be free with my own information. But, you know, it was very quickly known to me how open Jamie and Craig were, you know, so it was pretty cool. And obviously when we got to the end of the season, we were battling pretty hard, Jamie and I, when the championship got to that point, but, you know, we worked together very, very well all together for those couple of years. Yeah.
Are you a better driver and a stronger individual for your time working together with Roland Dane?
Oh yeah, for sure, yeah.
Expand. What's he done for you? What sort of insights and privileges have come from the relationship?
Yeah, like, he's very hard on people, but he knows how to get the most out of them. And, you know, when you've had a bad day, if it's something you've done that's completely wrong, you know, you'll get slapped on the wrist pretty hard for it. But if it's an error that just happened or something small, he'll support you in the right way. Like, there was even a message the other week after that wet race at Eastern Creek. Like, it was cryptic, but it had a pretty good message in it, you know. So it was, when I read it the first time, I'm like, oh, you know, it was. And then you read it again, and it was motivational, which is surprising. But that's how he is. Like, you know, he knows how to support you and knows how to get all the team behind you in the right way.
You talked before about, you know, he can be pretty tough. Is he giving you some epic reamings? Have you copped a few along the way? Copped a few bruises?
The first one was probably at Melbourne Grand Prix. It was only my second meeting with the team, and I pulled a pass on Lounsey, which was a block pass at turn 3, and propped it mid-corner, and he went to cross me over, and I just stayed on the brake, and he ended up running up the back of me. And it was a pretty good pass, but it, you know, cracked his headlight or something, and we just got all told off for it, because I think Jamie was leading or third. We were all battling, and it was too much. You know, it was at the F1 weekend in front of all the bigwigs, and, you know, we weren't allowed to be racing each other. And yeah, that was the first proper one, and yeah, I didn't think it was much because it was a pretty good race, and we ended up coming 1, 2, 3. But as soon as we got in the truck, it was just, he was into us.
Has that made you a better operator over time, having that sort of strong leadership that you know, where you clearly know right and wrong?
Yeah, and it filters down throughout the team. You know, we sometimes have our big moments, but it's normally pretty good.
Is it better to have him on site at the race meetings or off site? Would you rather interact with him face to face or via text?
No, face to face is good. The odd GT meeting, like we've done in Asia, we call it Asian RD when we go racing over there. He's a completely different character, and I don't enjoy that side. But the V8 stuff, he's really, really good to have around.
Just onto the 21 season, I strongly recall, and I remember phone calls about this, that there was a real doubt whether or not you could even actually get out of New Zealand at one point, wasn't there? So early in the season, when all the travel drama was going and COVID stuff, everyone was worried about whether you'd get back in time.
Oh, I think we still would have been able to come. We would have just had to quarantine for a couple of weeks in Sydney and then go straight to Bathurst. So at worst, I would have missed the test day. But that was the Friday or the Saturday of the New Zealand Grand Prix that the COVID came in New Zealand, and we had, I think Australia shut the bubble or something. But it only lasted a week, and then Andre and I could come over.
I want to talk about the New Zealand Grand Prix because, like every other sad motorsport fan, I devoured it, watched it on my computer laptop. It was one of the all-time motor racing drives. Yep. I'm sure that there's a great sense of pride for you as a Kiwi. New Zealand Grand Prix, some of the biggest names ever in the history of the sport are on it, and now there's your surname. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest races, and the New Zealand Motor Cup was part of it as well, which is another massive trophy. I only had one shot at it before, and I think I got a puncture quite early on. But yeah, to do that weekend and driving and testing, I was struggling with the car. I'd never left foot braked in anything but a rally car before. I was struggling a bit. And but how it worked out in the weekend, we were quite pacey, and we were even sandbagging, running full of fuel and letting off down the straights and stuff. And yeah, and then the racing started, and it was quite fun. I enjoyed it quite a lot. And then yeah, before the Grand Prix started, for some stupid reason, like the ignition is on the left, I flicked it, and then I'd been going to the steering wheel to start, but there was a rush, like the pit exit opened earlier than we thought, and I just flicked the ignition and then went to hit the start button on the chassis for some reason. But I've pushed the extinguisher button and it didn't start, so I pushed it again and got even more stuff going off. So yeah, pushed the fire button, which wasn't very good, and got the car started, and as I was driving down pit lane, the light went red. So yeah, I thought it was all over, and we were going to change the firebomb on the grid. But yeah, we ended up doing it in the garage, and 5 minutes to go, the spark plugs were still out of it. They were cleaning it all out. So I thought it was all over, but ended up okay.
Unbelievable happy ending. Congratulations on that. And it sort of leads me to the fact that you've got such a diverse interest in motorsport. It doesn't matter whether it's gaming or whether it's a rally car or whether it's the TRS car or whatever. But you need a leader that lets you do that stuff as well, don't you? Because It's one thing for you. I mean, we all want to drive cars every day, but it's another thing to actually have a guy that's leading you that allows you to do those things. So I imagine that you're quite grateful for that opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. And that started at Techno. When I was at Stone Brothers, I wasn't allowed to do anything else, not even Super Tours in NZ, which was fine. I just focused on that. But you only get to race 12, 13 weekends a year or a couple more. So getting to race, experience different teams and cars, I think I really thrived on that 2013 onwards. And I think Roland understood, I'm happiest when I'm driving, but I'm always learning and trying to get better. So yeah, I think it's been awesome. There's only a couple of things he's stopped me from driving. The rest of it, he says, go your hardest and have some fun.
Are you going to miss him when he's not in the garage and present constantly?
Yeah, for sure. He's a good person to have around, but I'm sure he won't be completely gone. He'll be involved with the GT next year and still come to some races and probably do some fun races as well, I'm sure.
I remember first meeting you, we were in Pitt Street in Sydney, must have been about 2007 or whatever, it was just prior to that Oran Park race, and you're a kid, and you were driving the Team Kiwi car, and at that stage we knew a little bit about you, and you had this sort of amazing background. So just expand a little bit on where the motor racing bug caught and the different things that you did. And I've got a few photos to go with this, obviously, that I think you or your dad have shared with me, but it's a pretty cool background.
Yeah, I remember the youngest memories of motorsport were going to Dad's rallies and rally sprints and playing on the gravel and watching him, but I was always firstly sitting on his lap driving around the farm, and then eventually got my own cars and was driving around the farm in bombs, but yeah, always loved it. And yeah, I think speedway and quad bikes we started in, and yeah, just kept moving up the ranks from there. And I was pretty lucky. I didn't do much circuit racing before I came over here. I'd only done 3 years, so it was quite a big jump into supercars, and I definitely wasn't ready, but that's the best way to learn. And I did have speed quite early, but there was a lot of rawness and mistakes and learning about teams and how to be a professional driver. It took a couple of years longer than it probably should have to get there, but like the leap was extreme, but it was a good way to do it.
How much of that early stuff in New Zealand, being in sideways in slippery surfaces, commanding a machine and commanding it well, how much of that's contributed to the professional that you are to these days?
I don't know. I don't really know. Like it's different to most guys, and I don't know. I don't know how it helps or how it's different, but probably missed out on a bit of go-karting. I guess a lot of guys did that for 10 years before they transferred to circuit stuff, but I don't know the answer really.
I want to talk a bit about your dad, and he's a perfectionist, as I understand it, and we're going to do some more conversations with your dad. He's also probably your number one fan. How influential is he in your racing life?
Oh, the most. He's always been a part of it and come to a lot of the races. I know he's hurting the last almost 2 years now not to be able to come to any, and you see the pictures now when he's at home or at work. He's got the big screen, the timing and the weather. He's got everything always set up, and point out sectors where I'm bad, or he's always watching, always taking notes, and it would be great to have him at some racing. He hasn't been since Adelaide 2020, I think it was his last one, so missed out on a lot.
Is it useful input that he can provide? Has he got a good racing brain and a good racing insight, and you get some value from that?
Yeah, most of the time. Nowadays you can see a lot of people's onboard footage, and can learn from that. But sometimes he'll be on track or whatever. He'll say, "Oh, he's using a different gear," and I can see that on the data or whatever. But there's still things obviously that you can learn, and it's an outsider's input. Someone who is not there all the time can sometimes see things that you might get tunnel vision about.
Who's the finer driver? I mean, because he had a racing background. Did he have a bit of fun there? Is there a bit of rub occasionally?
I think I am now. Probably a bit better just from experience, but the natural talent that he has, he didn't have, his dad never really supported his racing, and at his age, he did a little bit when he was younger, and then when he was older, when he had some money, he did some, but he never had that full crack. And he probably, when you see him, when I did that Auckland rally and his Escort, I said, "Oh, well, show me how to drive it." And, we went up and down the driveway, and he's just flat out, and the car control's just awesome. And, he knows how to do it once you teach him, but, for someone who hasn't done much really, he's pretty good.
How frustrating or how hurtful was it that one of your biggest achievements, which was the crowning glory of a Bathurst victory last year, he didn't get to attend? What a frustration.
Yeah, that was pretty sad. He's come to almost every Bathurst and loves that race, comes with a bunch of mates, they get a house and barbecues and a few drinks, I'm sure, and for him not to be there was a pretty sad one. It would have been awesome. I rang him like an hour afterwards, and I couldn't really understand him, but he was pretty happy. It was a pretty cool moment for him too.
How much support do you get from fellow Kiwis? Do you get a lot of attention? Is it good, bad, annoying? Tell me about it.
Yeah, well, most of my close friends are still Kiwis, so there'd be a whole bunch of them come for Bathurst and 3 or 4 rounds throughout the year. So I miss them being at tracks, and it's normally pretty fun. There's Sandown Retro round, they were always dressed up, and one autograph session they joined us and stuff, and I just miss them coming over and being a part of it. But they all watch every race and always give me shit about my starts, and it's normally pretty good fun. But I miss just they come to a track and you talk about everything other than racing. They're good people to have around.
Talking about giving you shit, you used to get a bit of shit from Murphy all the time, who was a bit of a pin-up in Kiwi racing land at Pukekohe and everything he's done at Bathurst. But you can give a bit back now because you're starting to notch up some numbers yourself.
Well, he'd always say, I'd give him shit, and he'd always say, well, you haven't won Bathurst yet, so he's missing a championship.
We talked about different cars. If I gave you a Larco crayon and said, what is your perfect race car? Because if I think about you, I've seen you in the Lexus GT car, the McLaren GT car, the supercar, the New Zealand Super Tourer, there's obviously rally cars, there's E-Series, there's all these different bloody race cars. What's the perfect race car for you? If I could just give you perfection, throw every bit of resource that you need, what would you create? Like, this is like a kid's dream. Here's all the money, here's the crayon, draw her up, tell me what she is.
Yeah, it's a big one. It would still be something supercars, like they're still my favourite car to race. I like a lot of ways that the Gen 3 is going, the low downforce, wide, tough body. They look really cool. I'd probably give it a lot more power, keep the skinny tyres, and go back to H-pattern, a good H-pattern box, and drive it properly. I think, what got me into supercars, early 2000s, was those cars they were proper beasts to drive, and it was a little bit too much disparity in equipment probably, but if you had 25 of those that were awesome cars all close to each other, that'd be proper beasts to drive. But the way Gen 3 is going, to me, is a bit like Carrera Cup. Like, you see how competitive that class is, but it's a bit too controlled, and the racing's pretty boring. You'd want it to be proper beasts, and still have some differences in setups, and be a challenge to drive.
It's interesting you say that, because I hadn't stopped to think about your perspective on it, but there are lots, particularly old blokes like me, who don't like the idea of assisted shifts, and they like the driver input. And for me, a paddle shift and an assisted blip just is a cheat. It means that you've just taken one of the control elements out of the game. Is that what your feeling is as well?
Yeah, but I can see it from a fan and a driver's point of view. Like, I can watch a fast lap at Bathurst, for example, in a GT car, and it's awesome and you appreciate it. But, the driver's just pressing the brake as hard as possible with the ABS, the TC, the paddles. The downforce looks cool, but that doesn't make good racing. Like, and seeing a driver hustle, and, the days like Seaton in the Skyline with no downforce in the wet, like, that doesn't happen anymore. You could see, all that kind of stuff is starting to disappear. Like, we need to go back the other way and make more people fall in love with it again.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. 100% agree with you. The first time that you drove at Oran Park in a supercar, just give me your recollections of that whole experience, because it was a bit of an eye-opener for a young kid who, has literally just been bombed into the middle of the scene. Yeah,
so I did, when I came over end of mid-2006, I did some test days in a Formula Ford, Queensland Raceway, and then I went down to Oran Park and loved the track, and I was quite quick there. And then jumped in a supercar, and it's a terrible supercar track. It's an awesome track in a Formula Ford, but in a supercar it was horrible, so narrow and tight. And I think the first day in practice I did pretty well. I think I ran a set of race tyres. You only got 1 or 2 sets of old pre-marked tyres, and then you got a set of 3 sets for the weekend or something. So we ran them in practice, so I looked pretty good. I think I was 15th or 16th, and then turned into qualifying, and I qualified second last or something, and I've never qualified that bad in my life. But it was a pretty average lap, but it was a shock. Like, I thought I was good because I was New Zealand Formula Ford champ or something, but everyone in the field was a Formula Ford champ at some point, so it was a big shock. But I think I got points though. I think back then you only got points to 15th, and I think I got points at one point during that weekend.
Repco Supercars Rewind Pod. We'll be right back after these short messages.
There's a lot of history hidden at Repco, so listen up, because this ad will be gone in 30 seconds. See, some people reckon we got 10W30 in our veins. Or if we look to the skyline, all we see are falcons, bluebirds and 200Bs. The truth is, we've got an unexplainable bond with motoring. Any Mark, Dick or Jamie could tell you that. So dart in store or online today for great deals. Repco, driven by passion for 100 years.
If you're loving this podcast, you should check out Supercars' other podcast offering, The Cool Down Lap. It's available the morning after each Supercars event. Super Archive is the place to enjoy all your favourite old races. It's available on the Supercars YouTube channel. Make sure you follow us on social media and stay up to date with all the latest news, exclusive video content and live timing at supercars.com. Tickets and hospitality packages are available to ensure you have the best seat in the house at your favourite track. And if you're an overseas fan of supercars, a SuperView subscription is a must for live, uninterrupted supercars action. Now, let's get back to the pod.
2016 was pretty special for you, your first championship, and you're about to back it up and do it again. Where do they rank? How important was that first one? Where does this one sit in it, knowing that this program airs, by the way, in 22, so by then you will be champion?
Probably a little bit early to ask that question, but yeah, I don't know. It'll probably mean as much as each other, I guess, when it happens.
2016 though, so let's just focus on that and take the complexity out of it. So 2016, you're a young Kiwi on the other side of the Tasman, watching everything that's gone on over here, no doubt, and now you're the man. You're the man who's won all those races, hot, cold, wet, windy, beaten big names. That's a hell of an achievement.
Yeah, I didn't expect that for the first year at Red Bull or Triple Eight. I always hoped I could jump in and go straight up the front, but it's still hard to put into words. Like, it's your life dream, life goals, I guess, and for that to happen was pretty special, but it's a feeling I'll never forget, and you just want to experience it again.
Sandown 2021, you and I have had some conversation about it already, but it's just the whole story is so mind-bending. So you put a lot of effort into your fitness and you drove a lot of things in the off-season.
Yep.
Then you fall off a friggin' mountain bike and bust a bone, which just would have been personally devastating. And then you came back and you literally blew us all away. Like, I walked into the circuit with Garth Tander and we were 100% certain that he was going to be driving that race car. We didn't know what you were going to do, and then you gave us a lesson in determination and skill like I've never seen before. What did that all mean to you?
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy couple of weeks, which is a bit of a blur. I remember, I spent all summer on a dirt bike. I had a brand new bike and it ended up with 30 hours on it. I spent all that time, and then second ride on a mountain bike, I hit a rock landing on a silly jump and did my shoulder and AC and some ribs and collarbone. It was pretty nasty for a pretty small crash, and I didn't know what I was going to be like. 2 weeks later, I was pretty nasty for that week. I think the Tuesday of Sandown, I drove the 6-hour BMW, and I told everyone I was good, but I wasn't. I couldn't lift my arm up high enough to turn, but seeing Brady the first week and the second week early, lifting my arm up, he said, the movement's so much better, and every day I could get higher and higher. And when I went down there on the Thursday, my simulator's set up to replicate the supercar, and I couldn't lift my arm up high enough, so I thought I'd be in trouble. But we lowered the wheel and found some drugs, I guess, or painkillers that were right. I was on something called Endone, which was just nasty. I was having crazy dreams and fighting dragons and stuff. It was nuts. I've never taken drugs before, really, and I'm not wanting to do it anytime soon. But I changed to Tramadol on the Friday, and I was pain-free, but my brain was clear. It was amazing. It was amazing stuff, and jumped in the car. I was still in a lot of pain, but as soon as I drove out, I could warm the tyres, I could turn, and then I hit turn 2 curb there, which was quite violent, and I didn't feel anything at all, which was quite a surprise. So then I knew I'd be fine, but up to turn 6, or end of the back straight, as soon as I turned in and had to use my core, I felt my ribs, something inside wasn't quite right, and I didn't know what was wrong, but I knew it wasn't good. But I got through the weekend, and when I went and saw the doctor after and to check everything was fine, I said, can you x-ray my ribs? I don't feel that good. And 2 were completely broke and 1 was just cracked, so it was a bit crazy.
The drive though, Shane, was it's making my hair stand up even thinking about it. Do you reflect on that now? Or maybe if I can get you to think about life when you're a grey beard, did you surprise yourself? Because seriously, mate, that was...
Yeah, at the moment I'm still pissed about qualifying. We got the best car and we qualified 17th or something, so that still pissed me off. But the race itself, you know, I don't know. I just had so much confidence at turn 1, especially, to just throw it in on people and just make it known that I was coming through, and no one really fought, because I was in that mindset, like, I'm 17th, I'm stuffed anyway, so if I crash into someone, it doesn't matter. And I think they all knew that and got out of the way. But yeah, it was unreal. Like, everything just worked perfectly in that race, and then the leaders sort of held each other up. And you know, when I watched that move with Chaz and J-Dub, it was pretty cool. It's one of the best passes I've ever done, but I don't really have any recollection of it, but I can watch it on TV, I guess.
Where do you rank that, though, in many fine achievements? Is that right up there?
Yeah, just because, you know, I think even RD had given up on me. Like, I went into work the week before for pre-brief, and, you know, he took one look at me, you know, and I was probably the wrong colour face and everything, and, you know, I got quickly removed from most conversations. Like, I think he thought, you know, there was no chance I was going to race, and just every day I got better and better, and yeah, it was crazy. I didn't think that was going to happen.
What do you think your proudest achievement might be? I know it's very difficult to sort of single things out, but you know, you think of all those poles, all those race victories, you know, Bathurst win, championship win. I mean, that drive that we're just talking about, these are big things in the history of the sport that we all love. Is there one that jumps out at you that you go, and you know, sometimes it's not even about winning. Sometimes it's about, you know, overcoming difficulties. You might have finished 5th, but it was an epic drive. Is there something that jumps out at you like? No,
not really. No. I'm still too much in the moment thinking about all the next ones. I don't really. There's been a lot of highlights, but you know, I don't single any out yet, I don't think.
So, which leads me then to an interesting question. So, the hunger and the passion and the thirst. What is it? You know, so you've done all these things.
Yep.
Is it just, do you live for those individual moments, or do you want to see it as a quantum? So, you know, is it, I want to win 5 championships, or I want to win 10 Bathursts, or do you just race to race for you and you just want to exceed expectation in each individual effort?
Yeah, good question. I don't know. There's not one single thing, but I still take enjoyment in change and motivation and always learning stuff. Like, you know, can always get better. I haven't got to the point where I think I've reached my maximum yet, and I don't think I surprise myself, but sometimes you're like, you know, you keep jumping to other levels, and that's a pretty cool thing. But yeah, I don't like championships or prize money. It doesn't motivate me. I just love being part of a team and winning races, and then wanting to do it again the next year. Yeah.
And does that always have to be a supercar, or would you consider going to Europe and driving GT forever, or do you look at McLaughlin doing IndyCar and think, you know what, Jesus, I wouldn't mind doing that?
No, not really. Like, I always say I love Aussie because it's close to home, but I haven't been able to really get back there. But yeah, I love Australian supercars, and being a part of that, it was what I always wanted to do, and I still love it. But I'm lucky that I get to go and race other things, America, Europe, and I love that racing and style of racing, but I always find it the best here, the most competitive and most intense, but also a lot of fun.
Do you miss Scott McLaughlin?
Yeah, he's a good friend. Like, we still race quite a lot on the computer and talk a bit, and message each other a bit. I watch all his races, and I watched IndyCar anyway because of Scotty Dixon, but yeah, getting to support him and be friends again, I guess, is pretty cool.
There's been a couple of times where it got strained, and he did say to me just recently, because we interviewed him about you, and he said some beautiful things, but he said that he wanted to jump out on the finish line at Pukekohe that year and thump you when you parked him in. What do you reckon?
Yeah, well, it was a good skid, that. I don't remember the skid, but yeah, I look back on that now and it's embarrassing, like, because I honestly didn't park him in, but it made a good storyline for you guys, and then he beat us the next day, you know. But yeah, those are the kinds of bits that all niggly and added up and made it a bit strained at time. But you can't be best friends with someone when it's your dream and your life goal to win a championship, and he's beating you or trying to beat you every week. It's pretty hard to be friends.
He blew me away with one comment, and I'd be interested in your reaction to this. He said that he'd love to drive a car with you one day.
Yeah, we spoke about it. We got close 2017, I think, when we did the McLaren thing at Bathurst, but he ended up in the sister car. But yeah, for sure, I'd love to have him along. Like, our styles are pretty similar, and I think it'd be pretty cool.
Do you ever imagine that you might like to try your hand at something like IndyCar or something of that nature, or is that just out of the question?
No, I'd like to test one. I don't know if I could race them full time. The oval stuff doesn't really interest me that much. Indy 500 maybe, but I don't think I could do it full time.
Roger Penske said to me one day that they always feared you. That, whenever you were on the march, that you're such a fierce competitor that they knew that they were in trouble when you were hunting. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, but it got harder. The harder later in years, the more aero there was, it was harder to pass, because Scotty generally started in front, like his qualifying was always exceptional. So he was more often or not in front, and we were the ones catching.
Tell me about a couple of the other rivals. So, Anton's maturing, and you guys spend a bit of time at Paul Morris's joint perfecting your craft, and it's probably a bit like Scotty. You're not necessarily mates, but you're colleagues. Well, you're mates off the track, but when you're on the track, it's dog eat dog. Tell me about racing with Anton.
I haven't actually done much wheel-to-wheel stuff with him, but you can see how he's gelling and getting better with that team. Like, he's settled in pretty well, and it's, we don't, I think, I read recently they don't like the Scotty comparisons, but when you watch those pole lap onboards, it looks the same. The car's on the nose, but he's driving it smooth, so it's not, it just looks like a great flow. They're very similar, even though they don't like that comparison. And I think, with that team, he's certainly going to be a force. Like, you could see at Erebus, there was a lot of glimpses, but couldn't quite crack it. And then now he's joined a top team. He's very fast.
Do you expect him to be a pain in the arse in 2022?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And what about the other boys? So Chaz, Cam, give me a bit of an assessment of some of your rivals in 2021.
Yeah, this year they've sort of come and gone. They're very inconsistent, but Cam and Chaz, they're both very good drivers and guys I know that I'm going to have the best race with when we battle. Like, they're both very similar, which is probably why they crash into each other a lot, but when you race them, they give you nothing but just enough. Like, it's always an awesome battle, and it goes both ways. When they come up on me, I know that it's going to be a tough one, but a fair one, and always enjoy that.
Tell me about Craig Lowndes, because he's still actively in the team. He's a teammate.
Yep.
But when you arrived on the scene, that made it sort of three people at the table. It wasn't just boyfriend, girlfriend. There was an extra date at the table. So, and I sense that at times could have been a little bit of friction there. You get on good with Craig and good to race against, and
yeah, like, we're obviously very different people, but I love Craig like everyone does, and seeing how he worked and what made him fast, and how he was in a team, like, super intense guy. Like, when you're in a debrief or you have a moment on track, like, he can be pretty straight, but then as soon as he has to go outside the track, it just snaps. He's back to big smiles and Mr. Nice Guy, as you would know. But just a great guy to have around, though. Always giving his all, and always has good input. Like, he's very, very good race car driver and operator as well.
It is funny, isn't it? The stuff that goes on outside the race car, he's got a tolerance for that stuff that none of the rest of us seem to be able to have. And it probably leads me to an interesting topic with you. I sense that, I don't know that you necessarily hate the media stuff or any of the commercial activity versus actually loving racing. Is it more that you love racing and that you'd prefer to do more racing than the other stuff, or do you actually hate the media stuff and all the other peripheral nonsense?
I don't know if I hate it. Like, I guess I accept it. There's some things that are very tedious and you get over, but when it's when it's always different or spontaneous, or you're doing sponsor stuff that's left field, that's quite enjoyable. Or if you're in a press conference and people ask questions that make you think, and I enjoy stuff like that and that challenge. But some of it gets a bit tedious, and you go to Europe or America, you don't do any of that stuff. Like, you just turn up and drive and do the odd interview, but it's completely different here. Like, the media side and the sponsorship partner side seems to be more than the driving, but I guess I have to tolerate it to be able to get to drive the best car.
and you do that with Triple Eight, and you make a point whenever you get out of the car, and I've listened to it in your interviews where you thank the team a lot. You thank the boys and girls of Triple Eight. It appears as though you are very thankful for the opportunity.
Yeah, and how hard everyone works, not just the people at the racetrack, but there's so many that stay home that don't travel. Like, it's a pretty awesome, tight-knit team, and everyone knows their role and does it. It's pretty cool. And, you know, the end of 2021, when we're all on the road, a lot of people have left their families and friends behind. It's pretty tough, but yeah, I'm just lucky to be a small part of a big team.
Talk to me about some of the epic battles. I spoke to J-Dub about them before. There's one in particular when you were at SBR in 2010, Gold Coast, and you and J-Dub were at it. And this is when, we kind of knew earlier, but this was when everyone went, oh shit, this bloke's on it. So what are your recollections of that battle?
Yeah, I remember we had a pretty good car there, and I think I closed up to him pretty early in the stint and couldn't get through, so backed off and then came close to him at the end of the stint. And he was going away and my tyres were pretty good, and I think it was the last lap I got alongside him down the front straight, and then we both just braked too late. You know, he had to send it because he was on the outside, and I didn't want to back down and just brake too late on the marbles. But, you know, I hadn't won a race then, so it still hurt a bit, but it's probably one of the best second places I've ever had. But, you know, as soon as we knew we weren't making the chicane, he just flew through and took the win. But it was one of the best races I've had, and, you know, pretty stoked still to come second. Like, it was a cool battle.
I mean, I see you guys today, and as in the context of this interview, you've just come off the back of a pretty ferocious battle between the two of you, and it always seems to me that off the track you're quite good mates and good, strong colleagues, but on the racetrack it's right on the fringe. The two of you are about as close as you can get to duking on, because, I mean, it happened in New Zealand at the hairpin in, what year was it, 2016? 16, yeah. And you did the sort of the synchronised swimming down there together.
Yeah, we've had some big moments. Like, I think it also come to a head at Townsville this year, and, you know, we sort of had sorted that out, and we had pretty good ground rules, and then that all went out the window at SMP3. Like, but that's the kind of person he is. Like, he's so competitive and a racer. Like, something in his brain just switched, you know. And then I think it was soon after the race, you know, was even at the podium when we spoke. He didn't realise what he'd sort of done, and then afterwards it hit him. But I didn't mind that at the time. You know, I didn't like getting pushed off the track, but I love the battle and I love the racing. But I knew that it wasn't going to be good when we got back to the truck and with the team stuff. So it's a bit of a shame, because I loved always battling him until I joined the team. Then we couldn't really battle like that anymore, although we did. Yeah, it's been tense at times, but I think as teammates we've been pretty good and always pushing each other up higher and higher. And
that's a point, isn't it? Because that intense rivalry that helps you find the 100th is often the difference between success and failure in this business, and the two of you appeared to have lifted each other to a very high level. Yeah, and then to add Scotty in the mix, I think us three in the last few years have pushed each other to be higher than the others. It's been pretty awesome to make myself better, to match those guys, and then at times to know they're pushing to match me. Like, I think it's been a pretty awesome combo. But I sensed on the weekend when I was watching and listening, because I listened to you all the time, that the tone in your voice sounded like you were a little bit hurt by what was going on. You know, that it was actually like, really? This is civil war. This is friendly fire. Yeah, that's right. I think, as I said, we had a pretty big meeting after Townsville, what was accepted and what wasn't, and we sort of had a plan to. And I just remember race 2, like, everyone was so pumped. We didn't even win. We got second and third, but we should have won race 3. And here we are battling, letting Will Brown get away. And could we have passed Will? I don't know. But we took away the opportunity from ourselves to win it. And, you know, it was his sort of decision to battle, I think, when he was getting told to let me through. Like, I had a lot better tyres, 3 laps better, and was pushing on. So, again, I'm a little bit confused by it because I enjoyed it, but I knew that the wrong thing was happening at the time. Like, I was just getting clean run off the road, which is fine when you're battling, but not against the teammate when there was a bigger picture at hand. well, you almost ended up in the Turn 5 Dunnies at one stage up
Yeah.
there, and so. What did Roland say? I mean, I'm sure he rang you, or
No, I haven't spoken to him.
Really?
Yeah, I haven't heard from him. Yeah.
Didn't text you?
Nothing. No,
Nothing.
Nothing.
Did that surprise you?
Yeah, because it's probably a good thing because I wasn't the one in trouble. But after most weekends, when he's not there, I'm normally in contact with him. And after the second round, he sent me that cryptic message about how to be better and what happened. But yeah, ghosted.
Jamie, your boss then. So in 2022, he becomes the leader.
Yep.
There's a PR answer and there's a real answer here.
Yep.
If someone dongs you on the head in life and snots you, then it does scar, doesn't it? Because we've all had it. We've all been through that. So does that just leave you with a 1%, are we in this together?
Oh, yes and no. I know he's such a different person outside of the car. Like he's really measured and always calm and thorough in his decisions, which makes him late a lot of the time. But yeah, he's very, very measured. So I think he'll be a really good team boss. It'll take a lot of time, to fully slot into the role. But he's got RD next year to help him. But yeah, I think he'll be really good, and I think he'll be even more open towards myself and Brock to help us be better as a team as well.
I've only got a couple more questions because time's not on our side and I want you to get to that debrief. But Tony Quinn, you get to work with Quinny again. He was a big believer. He threw money at you.
Yeah.
So you got the band back together again. Tell me about his influence.
Yeah, so he joined supported Techno in 2013, and I didn't really know him then. And, got to know him, drove a few of his cars, and then, seeing how he works and what he's done with his empire, I guess, and getting to race with his son Clark a lot as well. It's a cool person to have into the team. And, it was surprising that RD wanted to get out, but also you understand, but he's the perfect person to have along, and seeing what he's doing with motorsport and buying the circuits, and, they're not for a business gain, it's for, his legacy and wanting to do the right things in motorsport, and seeing what he wants to do with the New Zealand kids and all the scholarships over there and bringing them over is it's pretty awesome and pretty special to see. So looking forward to seeing what he'll do with our team, and I think he'll be a little bit hands-off maybe to start with and then guide it in some way in the future.
It's going to be a very different Triple Eight in 2022. Your mate Jamie's going to be out of his race suit and he'll be wearing a button-up shirt and telling you what to, where you collect your rental car and all that shit. And RD's going to be off the scene. Is it going to be the same place? Is it going to have the same vibe and deliver all the things that you need? Because there's a lot that goes into contributing to racing success. Yeah,
it'll be the first time I've had a younger teammate, I guess, and then a rookie teammate at that. I think the delay in the car change is a good thing for us. Brock can just slot in a well-sorted car, and I'd be not worried, but if we were Gen 3 next year like we were meant to be, having to develop a car with a rookie might be tough. But I think it's going to be good next year. And I think, as I said, with RD staying and helping the transition, I think it'll be a good process, yeah.
Just a couple of things I just want to squeeze in while I've got about 4 minutes before I want you to go. But I want to talk about near misses, because I was brokenhearted for you in 2014 at Bathurst when you should have won that friggin' thing. And the whole country went, oh my goodness. And your dad put his arm around you and took you back to the transporter. And man, that was a heavy moment. Yeah,
I've kind of taken the emotion out of that. I still mean to watch that race. Now that I've won it, I want to watch it again. But I'm not emotional towards that at all. It's something that happened. We got to understand the reasons for why it happened. And, that was it. And
what about runner-up in 16, runner-up in 19? There was I've always sensed that you were going to win the bloody thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you did too. But when you miss out by a 10th, that's just nuts, isn't it?
Well, 16, there was a bigger picture. Jamie was out front, had the penalty, and I was trying to go for the championship. So I had a couple of goes at Will, but if I wasn't in the championship, I probably would have forced the issue. So I had that in the back of my mind. And then 19 was obviously a little bit controversial.
So it must have been special when you did finally break through and win that bloody thing.
Yeah, and I just remember the last stints and how much I enjoyed them, and being able to just manage Cam and just slow him up and overheat the tyres. Always, it was like 3 stints of the exact same, just ruin his tyres and then drive away so the guys weren't under pressure at the pit stops. And yeah, the feeling after racing, like, I guess missed a little bit of the atmosphere, like having the front straight full, but yeah, it was super cool to finally win that race.
You're looking forward to going back with GT in 21?
Yeah, and hopefully in the future too. Like, learning off him, the first year, it was like he hadn't fully stepped away from full-time driver. He was not trying to set the car up, but we were a little bit different from what we wanted. And then last year he just jumped in, did the job, drove it, provided pretty good input, and just told me to be patient. Like, our car was pretty loose on the Thursday and Friday and didn't really like it. And he just said, Sunday, this thing will be fine. Just let it come to us. And it's that experience that, I just didn't have at that stage, at that place. Just the way the track changes and evolves. I learnt a lot and still always learning off him.
Is that your favourite location?
Oh, it's up there. I got 3. That's obviously there. But I got Spa in Belgium. That's an amazing track. And I haven't cracked that place yet. I think I've DNF'd almost all the 24s I've done there in the McLaren. But what a track. It's awesome. Always been fast there, but never any luck. And then Quinny's track, Highlands, like, it's got, so many different corners from around the world, the location and the challenge. Like, I don't think I've ever done a perfect lap around there, and if anyone says they have, they're lying. It's a really tough but awesome track.
Thoroughly enjoyed the conversation today, Shane. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for your help. Congratulations on everything that you've achieved and great success in this year's championship and for Bathurst. Thank you, mate.
Cheers, Neil.
Thanks for listening to Repco Supercars Rewind. Repco, driven by passion for 100 years. We hope you enjoyed this extended chat with Shane van Gisbergen, taken from the Inside Line docuseries produced earlier this year. You can catch all 7 episodes of Inside Line now on the Supercars YouTube channel and go behind the scenes with Triple Eight during their 2021 season. This is the last of the Repco Supercars Rewind pods for 2022. So a big thank you for everyone who's listened in, and also those who downloaded our Supercars Cooldown Lap pod as well after each event. We hope to bring you plenty more stories just like these, so keep an ear out in 2023. Bye for now.